the one man who bothered Burt Lancaster more than anyone else. Burt Lancaster was born with the name Burton Stephen Lancaster on November 2, 1913 in the rough neighborhoods of East Harlem, New York City. He grew up in a working-class family who came from Ireland. His father, James Lancaster, delivered mail for a living, and his mother, Elizabeth, spent her life taking care of her 5 children and teaching them right from wrong and good behavior. From when he was very young, Burt showed amazing athletic skills that made him different from other kids. He was tall, quick on his feet, and full of non-stop energy, all things that would later become part of his incredible presence on movie screens. Before Hollywood ever knew his name, Lancaster's life was shaped by tough times and never giving up. He went to DeWitt Clinton High School where his sports abilities won him a free scholarship to New York University. However, his restless personality could not be kept quiet by school life. Leaving college behind, he joined the circus as an acrobat, teaming up with his best friend Nick Cravat to form the duo Lang and Cravat. Together, they amazed audiences all over the country with exciting trapeze acts, a job that made Lancaster's athletic skills and self-control even better. Things that would later make his powerful movie performances stand out. The circus, with its mix of danger, artistry, and amazing shows, gave him the perfect training for a man who would one day wow millions of people watching movies. When World War II started, Lancaster put his performing job aside to help his country. He joined the US Army in 1942, working with the Special Services Entertainment Division, where he put on shows for soldiers instead of fighting in battles. Even there, his charm and natural ability to lead really showed. His time in the war made him understand people's feelings better and helped him see human nature in deeper ways, both of which would later make his movie roles feel more real and emotional. Lancaster's path to Hollywood happened almost by accident. After the war, he was working as a salesman when a talent scout saw his good looks and powerful personality. He was soon given a chance to try out for movies, which led to his first film, The Killers, 1946, a classic crime movie based on an Ernest Hemingway story. The movie was a huge hit right away and shot Lancaster to fame. His acting as the doomed boxer Swede Anderson showed both his physical strength and his ability to show weakness under a tough outside appearance. Overnight, he became one of the most wanted actors in the business. Throughout the late 1940s and 1950 seconds, Burt Lancaster became famous for being able to play many different types of roles. He refused to be put in just one type of character, playing heroes, anti-heroes, and bad guys all with the same strong belief. His roles in movies such as Brute Force 1947, Criss Cross 1949, and From Here to Eternity 1953 made his reputation solid as a leading man of power and smarts. In From Here to Eternity, his romantic kiss on the beach with Deborah Kerr became one of the most famous scenes in movie history. But behind the romantic picture was an actor deeply committed to making things feel real. Every movement, every word, every moment was done with exactness and emotional truth. Lancaster was not happy to just be an actor who took whatever jobs came along. In 1948, he helped start Hacktill Lancaster Productions, one of the first independent movie-making companies in Hollywood. Through this business, he took control of his creative future, making movies that went against the normal ways of doing things and dealt with important social issues. Movies like Marty, 1955, which won the Academy Award for Best Picture, showed Lancaster's belief in telling stories that talked about the human experience rather than just making lots of money. His bravery to take chances both as an actor and as a movie maker helped create a new time in Hollywood filmmaking, one driven by artistic freedom and doing what was morally right. The 1960s and 1970 seconds were a time when Lancaster kept changing and trying new things. He won his first Academy Award for Best Actor for his amazing performance in Elmer Gantry 1960, in which he played a charming but morally confused preacher. The role showed his ability to mix charm and danger in a way very few actors could do. Later in Birdman of Alcatraz, 1962, he gave one of his most kind and human performances as prisoner Robert Stroud, a man who finds a way to be better through taking care of birds. These roles showed not only his range of skills, but also his deep understanding and care for complicated, flawed characters. Even as he got older, Lancaster's love for acting never went away. He took on more thoughtful roles in films such as The Leopard, 1963, Atlantic City, 1980, and Field of Dreams, 1989. In Atlantic City, His acting as an aging small-time criminal wanting his lost glory back earned him lots of praise and another Academy Award nomination. The performance was a touching look at Lancaster himself, an aging star looking back on an amazing life with both pride and sadness. Away from the camera, Burt Lancaster was known for his intelligence, interest in politics, and strong values. He supported civil rights movements, spoke out against the Vietnam War, and stood up for liberal causes at a time when such positions could hurt an actor's career. He carried himself with a quiet sense of respect, never looking for attention for his activism, but always standing firm in what he believed. His friends and co-workers often described him as intense but caring, fiercely independent, but loyal to the people he cared about. Burt Lancaster's romantic life, just like his career, was filled with complicated feelings, passion, and deep emotion. His relationships showed the different parts of his life, from a young struggling performer trying to find his place in the world to a mature and well-known Hollywood icon whose charm captured audiences across many generations. Over the course of his lifetime, Lancaster was married 3 times, each marriage showing a unique side of the man behind the magnetic screen presence. His first marriage was to June Ernst, whom he married in 1935, long before fame ever came into his life. At the time, Lancaster was still a young acrobat working with the K Brothers Circus, making a small living performing daring stunts that showed off his athletic ability and fearlessness. June, a fellow performer and his partner in the early days, went through the hardships of his pre-Hollywood years with him. Their marriage represented the raw idealistic side of Lancaster's youth, a time when love was built on simplicity, big dreams, and hopes yet to come true. The couple's life together was far from fancy, often filled with not knowing what would happen next as Lancaster struggled to find his path after the Great Depression messed up his early career in the circus and theater. Despite their connection and shared experiences, the stress of constant travel, money problems, and Lancaster's growing restlessness wore them down. By 1946, after more than 10 years of marriage, the pair divorced. This breakup was a major turning point in Lancaster's life, happening just as his acting career was beginning to take off following his breakout film, The Killers. 1946. It was a bittersweet ending. June had been by his side during his years of being unknown, but his sudden rise to stardom made it hard for their marriage to survive the crazy whirlwind of change that followed. Later that same year, Lancaster married Norma Anderson, a relationship that would become the most important and long-lasting of his life. Their marriage, which lasted from 1946 to 1969, covered the golden age of his career, including his change from a tough, athletic leading man to an Oscar-winning actor and respected producer. Norma was more than a wife, she was his intellectual equal and a calming force during his climb to success. Together they had 5 children: Bill, James, Susan, Joanna, and Sile. Family life gave Lancaster a sense of being grounded, even as Hollywood fame surrounded him with temptation and mystery. Norma was deeply involved in his work world, often acting as a trusted friend and someone to bounce his creative ideas off of. However, the intensity of Lancaster's career, marked by lots of travel, long movie shoots, and his dedication to his work, put huge stress on their marriage. Over time, the couple's relationship began to fall apart under the weight of his growing ambitions and his involvement with social causes that sometimes drew disagreement. Despite their eventual divorce in 1969, Lancaster continued to talk about Norma with respect and admiration, recognizing her influence on both his personal life and professional growth. Their marriage symbolized the most productive years of his life, both as an artist and as a father. After his divorce from Norma Anderson, Lancaster stayed single for many years. He was romantically connected to several women, including co-stars and admirers, but none of these relationships led to marriage. He seemed to pour his passion into his work, focusing on challenging roles and social activism. As he got older, Lancaster's views on love and companionship grew and matured. He became more thoughtful about his life, valuing emotional connection over the youthful intensity that had once been the main part of his earlier romances. His third and final marriage came much later in life when he married Susan Martin in 1990. By then, Lancaster was in his late 70s and already a living legend, admired not just for his screen performances, but for his outspoken beliefs and work helping others. Susan Martin was a much younger woman who brought comfort and companionship to his later years. Their relationship showed a quieter, more thoughtful period in Lancaster's life, one marked by enjoying simple joys rather than the restless chase for fame. Though their marriage was relatively short because of Lancaster's declining health, it gave him peace and stability in his final years, something he had looked for much of his life. Throughout his long and legendary career, Burt Lancaster was known for his powerful screen presence, his iron will, and his refusal to back down from anyone. He was admired by many of his peers, but also feared by those who crossed him. Though he worked with some of Hollywood's greatest actors and directors, there was one man who managed to bother Lancaster more than anyone else: Kirk Douglas. The two were both alpha males in the golden age of movies, often compared for their rugged good looks, physical intensity, and determination to control their careers. On the surface, they appeared to be close partners in movies, even friends. But underneath the public smiles and handshakes, a fierce rivalry brewed between them for decades, one that Lancaster himself later admitted was equal parts respect and annoyance. Lancaster and Douglas first met in the late 1940s when both were becoming big stars in Hollywood. Kirk was loud, confident, and so sure of himself, Lancaster once said. He wanted to be the top dog, and so did I. They quickly realized they shared the same goals, the same hunger for meaningful roles, and the same desire to escape the studio system's control. When they co-starred in I Walk Alone, 1948, sparks flew, not romantic ones, but competitive ones. Lancaster felt Douglas was trying to steal every scene, constantly changing where he stood and how he said his lines to get more attention. He always wanted to be the center of the frame, Lancaster said with a smirk years later. So did I. That made for a lot of tension. Despite their rivalry, the two men knew that together they made box office gold. Over the years, they appeared in several films side by side, including Gunfight at the Oak Corral, 1957, The Devil's Disciple, 1959, and 7 Days in May 1964. Their chemistry on screen was electric, driven by real-life competitiveness. Kirk brought out the best in me, Lancaster once admitted. I couldn't stand to lose a scene to him, and that meant I worked twice as hard. But behind the scenes, arguments happened all the time. They fought over script changes, whose name came first in the credits, and creative control. Lancaster, who had his own movie-making company, often clashed with Douglas over who would have final say on a project. We both wanted to be the boss, Lancaster said, but there's only room for one general in a war. Their relationship went back and forth between friendship and fighting. On some days, they'd laugh together like brothers. On others, they wouldn't speak at all. Crew members remembered the two men staring at each other between takes, each waiting for the other to give in first. Lancaster admired Douglas's drive, but disliked his cockiness, while Douglas respected Lancaster's artistry, but resented his stubbornness. He was the only man who could really get under my skin, Lancaster confessed in one interview, because he reminded me too damn much of myself. In later years, as both men grew older, their rivalry became softer and turned into mutual respect. They reunited for films such as Tough Guys, 1986, a nostalgic comedy that reflected their shared history. Time had mellowed them, and both could look back on their fiery partnership with fondness. We fought, we competed, we even hated each other sometimes, Lancaster said with a chuckle. But we also made magic together. He kept me honest. Douglas, for his part, echoed the sentiment, calling Lancaster a magnificent bastard and the best friend and worst enemy I ever had in Hollywood. Their bond was complicated, a mixture of admiration, jealousy, and grudging love. They represented two sides of the same coin, both self-made men who rose from humble beginnings to dominate Hollywood through sheer force of will. Yet their pride often stood in the way of true friendship. Kirk needed someone to challenge him, Lancaster once said, and I was happy to be that someone. In the end, Burt Lancaster never denied that Kirk Douglas was the one man who could truly rattle him. Their professional battles were legendary, but they were also a reflection of how deeply they respected each other's talent. He irritated the hell out of me, Lancaster once said with a laugh, but he also pushed me to be better. Without Kirk, maybe I wouldn't have worked so damn hard. It was a rivalry that defined not just two men, but an entire era of Hollywood, an era where pride, passion, and perfectionism collided on screen and off, leaving behind a legacy of unforgettable performances and one of the most fascinating friendships in movie history. Lancaster died at his apartment in Century City, Los Angeles, after having a third heart attack at 4:50 a.m. on October 20, 1994, age 80.